everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another video. This is my October wrap up. It's probably not going to be too long because all the books I've already had been talked about before, but I'll just go through them and just say a few thoughts and things and star ratings. So I read 8 books in total, and I had 1 DNF, and the total came to 1,723 pages, which I think is about middle-ish, and 5.55 hours of audiobook listening as well. The first book I finished was With His Words I'm Not Alone by Lucas Riker. I gave this 3 stars. I was on Goodreads, up-and-coming author asked me if I wouldn't mind reviewing his book. It follows a man, I forgot his name, sorry, my brain is still so terrible, but anyway, and he is trying to become an author, so he quits his job. He also has a phobia of touching people and a phobia of being alone as well, so it's quite difficult to navigate, and I do think it does quite a good depiction of sort of anxiety and panic attacks and when your certain problems triggering and stuff. But he gets a message from someone that says hey daddy or something, and then they start talking, and he also starts using sort of AI to write parts of his books and journalist sort of articles as well, and it talks about sort of the use of AI, sort of the good and bad in a sense within sort of the common issue or tool some people see, and yeah, that is sort of the plot. And he also talks with his friends and stuff, and this sort of dynamic with this person that messaged him, and him sort of exploring some of his sexuality in some sense. I think it was okay. I think maybe a little bit overwritten at times. I think because the person that messages him, as soon as we're sort of introduced to another character and we don't really get anyone else that sort of would fit that character of the person texting, I think they're called Shadow or something, not the person the real person, but the person messaging, we sort of know it's instantly that person because there's no one else to compare it to. So that was a little bit obvious, and then when the main character doesn't sort of work it out sooner, it's come on. And also the fact that he hasn't really, I think he's 30, something like that, and he's never sort of thought about maybe he might also like guys. That was a little bit okay, of course there is different sexualities or arrow ace spectrums, how you feel your attraction in some sense, but it wasn't that well explored, I would say, and a few things didn't particularly add up, but I would recommend it, I guess. Then I have 2 books that I finished reading for my bookish Euros, which is the Welsh one, Martha, Jack and Shanker by Carol Lewis, and this is translated from Welsh or Cymraeg by Gwen Davies. I gave this 2.5 stars. It's basically following 3 siblings that work on a farm that they inherited from their mother, and just sort of the brutality of it and sort of the day-to-day life, and them sort of holding a grudge against each other because the mum didn't leave it to just one of them, and they sort of want to stay there because they feel they own part of it, but also they're not enjoying their life, and they sort of missed opportunities of trying to break free from this setting. And I also think it does quite a good way of sort of the isolation and the prevalence on sort of English language, specifically with a certain scene later in the book. But yeah, I hated reading it, I would say, but I do feel there is quite a bit to it, and as later on reading some reviews and other things, there is some symbolism, and the depictions of the life is true, but it's not a nice reading experience. There is a lot of animal death and animal cruelty, and I just hate reading that so much. So yeah, I wouldn't personally recommend it because I didn't like it, but it does sort of have a bit to say. But yeah, I really just hate like injustice in books and stuff, or when things aren't really tackled or spoken about. But yeah, then the Dutch one is We Had to Remove This Post by Hannah Bervowitz, and this is translated by Emma Rout. I gave this 1.75 stars. I think originally it was 2, but I brought it down. This basically follows a woman, Kaylee, and she works as like a content moderator, like for, I can't remember. I think it's like it's never said, but I think I worked it out. It was Facebook, but I might have been wrong. It's called Hexa, like the place she works, and they have to like look at videos and then see, do they fit certain criteria, can they take it down, does it have to stay up. And there's just a lot of like violence and like the things they watch and stuff, which is, I guess, like, I don't really particularly like it, but it does get a sense of like, you know, the lives they're living, that is what they're constantly seeing. But then like the way it trickles into themselves, and like when they're part of sort of like these marginalized groups, or the content is it speaking negatively about certain groups, they have to take it down, and sort of like they're sort of part of these different groups, but then they sort of share some of the same ideas, and it's just like annoying. She meets a girlfriend, can't remember her name, and like other friends as well from working there, and it's just a bit like weird, and just goes different places, and like it is unfinished, I would say. Like at the end, it's just like the end didn't need to be there, and it was just like there's a review on Goodreads, I think it's from like Cindy Reads, who's a YouTuber as well, and she was like, the author just was like writing, and she just went away from her keyboard and didn't finish, because like I would say this book is unfinished, yeah, it's just kind of annoying. So yeah, I didn't like that, and I would not recommend it. Now, all the remaining books I talked about in my Read What Unhaul October spooky-ish version. So again, I'm not going to say too much about them, so I don't feel too well at the moment. Anyway, I read The Midnight Club by Christopher Pike. I gave this 4.25 stars. This is the highest of the month. I did really actually enjoy this book. I did read, well, I did watch previously in the Gavin Reads It All video where he read this, and he was a little bit like unsatisfied because it's not as like horror as it sort of seems, and that is true. So I sort of went in knowing that it wasn't going to be horror, but it basically follows a group of young adults that are in a hospice for the terminally ill, and they meet at midnight, and they sort of like tell each other stories. Some are like a bit horror-y, spooky, about like murder and death and stuff, but others are sort of more like a drama or like a literary, and have like other elements to them. So they're not like what they say terrifying story, I wouldn't really say that. It's sort of, it's like a YA book. Definitely would like to check out the author again, like more of his works, and maybe some that are a bit more horror-y, is likened to R.L. Stein. But yeah, I feel like I like the way they sort of explored you know, coming to the end of your life at such a young age, and the injustice and horribleness like nature of that. I did quite like the characters and the interactions, and some of the stories were actually really good as well. So yeah, on the whole, I have more to say, but like I would recommend this book. I did enjoy it, and that was that. Then we had Rizzio by Denise Mina. This is part of the Darkland Tales books. They're all like very short, and I have enjoyed like most of them. Hex was my favorite one I've read so far, which I read last year or the year before. Last year, yeah, last year. 5 stars, amazing, by Jenny Fagan. So I do want to slowly go through all the Darkland Tales books. It follows the like before and during and sort of after of the assassination of David Rizzio, who was the like friend and advisor to Mary Queen of Scots in the like 1566, yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars. Did I say that already? I can't remember. But I enjoyed it, I would say. I think there's a certain sort of person's perspective that isn't really necessary. It doesn't really add too much. But it was okay. I think like what was quite good was sort of like the talk about the reasoning for trying to remove him, and in the process to remove Mary Queen of Scots from her position of power, and that's because she wasn't giving in to her husband Henry, I think that was his name, and because she's a woman not given into a man, so that's sort of like petty treason because a man is above a woman, but like she is literally the queen, so that is like she's above everyone else. So it was like sort of like dichotomy, like juxtaposition sort of element, which is like, in my eyes, I'm like, it's not adding up. Like, what are you trying to say? We all follow a period in Scottish history and sort of like tell it through like a more of like a modern frame in some sense. But yeah, I would recommend that. Then we had a DNF, and He Shall Appear by Kate Vanderborg. My DNF is at 47%, so I did get quite like a way through it. It follows a man who, in like the present day, he's asked to go back to Cambridge or Oxford, one of them, to like some event, and he thinks back, and then it sort of like goes not back in time, but like sort of dual time frame to when he started university, and him coming sort of like from like the north and sort of like having an accent and not really knowing all the social cues and etiquettes and things. I think that's done quite well. So like the classism, which was prevalent from like the group of friends he made, and he meets this new like this guy sort of like does like magic tricks and sort of like pranks and stuff. He's a bit weird, and yeah, I think like there was more to it. I sort of, if I want to try and remember, I probably can, but I don't really feel the need to. I just wasn't really that invested in the story. It had like this sort of like spooky element and stuff, and a bit ghostly maybe, but yeah, I didn't really care, so I didn't continue it. Then I read Mr. Magic by Kirsten White. This had such an amazing like start and middle, but it did sort of lose me towards the end. It's about this woman, Valentina, who was sort of like taken in a sense by her father, and like they lived on a farm, like a ranch, with like the woman that owned it, and she was taken when she was like, I want to say 8, maybe 12. Her dad dies at the start of the book, and the woman that owns it like puts it on social media for like people to come to the funeral and stuff. So then these like 3 guys come and they're like, oh my god, like it's Val, like I know her. And then she's like, I kind of like, I remember knowing you, but I don't know who you are. And these 3 guys, oh, we used to be on a TV show together, which is called Mr. Magic. And she's like, wait, what? And there's like, and she's like, there's a reunion and your mum's alive. And she's like, okay, well, I mean, there's nothing really more left for me here now, so I'm gonna go with them and try and find my mum. And we sort of like talk about like the reunion, and like we meet another of the circle of friends, which was this group. I say a lot more in my like read it on haul video, and they're sort of just like reconnecting and trying to like think like what happened on this show, like I want to say 30 years ago, and why, like what was his accident that made it stop. That was quite interesting because like the show and like all the clips and knowledge of it is sort of like removed from like the internet, and like articles and stuff. Like whenever someone talks about it, like it gets removed, and someone's doing like a podcast on like maybe trying to make it again and stuff. There's a lot to it. It's okay. It sort of explores sort of like cultishness and sort of like I won't say because it's sort of a spoiler, but like I think I say a little bit in the read on haul video. But yeah, I would recommend it. I'll check out the author again. I do have another one of her books, but I didn't love it. I will probably be unhauling this. Then we had Black Paradox by Junji Itso, translated from Japanese by Jocelyn Allen. It's like a manga book, like a horror. Basically follows these 4 people that plan to die by suicide, and they want to try and find like the best way. And I thought it was going to be a little bit maybe more about like their reasons for, and like thoughts and feelings and stuff that like led them to that desire, I guess. But it sort of straight away goes into it's a horror and the horror elements of the story. And yeah, I won't really say much because like it is quite short and it's a manga and you sort of like get through it quite quickly. But I think it's like well drawn, quite scary some parts, like when you're looking it's like, oh, that's quite spooky. But yeah, maybe I wanted a little bit more like of the characters and like their feelings and stuff, and like the way things like go are like, okay, shifting a bit. But yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars. I don't know if you'll check out the author again. I do have one more of his book, I think, Shiver. But yeah, I didn't love it, but it was okay. And then we finished the month off with Columbus Bones by David Gregg, another in the Darkland Tales series. This is following 3 characters on the Isle of Iona in 825 AD. And there's a bloody Viking raid, and they killed all like the monks in the monastery, trying to find the relic of Saint Columba to like steal and take back. But one of the Vikings gets left behind, Grimmer, and then there's also one monk that was left surviving called Brother Martin, and then the mead wife, who was the wife of the blacksmith, and she like makes like meads and she doesn't really talk much. I have forgotten her name. It is revealed to us like about halfway through the book, so sorry. And it's sort of them trying to reconnect and sort of rebuild the island after this bloody massacre, and thoughts about like their past and their like what they're doing now, and the merging of the like Viking beliefs and ideals and sort of like what Grimmer thinks, and also with the Christian and sort of the ideals, I guess, of Brother Martin, and trying to see things from different people's perspectives. And yeah, I did sort of like the sort of like sense of found family, and it's like a quite like comic at times, and yeah, and also I quite like the midwife character, and like she makes like these meads with like the different types of honeys, and she like speaks to the bees, and like things she puts in them for different reasons, and sort of a little bit like sorcery elements. Not really, it's just because like the things she puts into them causes different effects and stuff. But yeah, I did quite enjoy it. I gave it 3.5 stars. I didn't love it, but it wasn't too bad. I would recommend it. And like I said, I do want to read all the Darkland Tales books. So yeah, it was a little bit shorter maybe, trying to wrap up these books. I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless, and I shall see you very soon. Have a nice morning, night, wherever you are in the world. Bye.